quite often in our human experience, it's in times of crisis when we really find out who we are. I'll be right back. Hey everybody, it's Mike from thegraciousguest.org here, welcoming you to the Gracious Guest Show, and I want to just give a little quick shout out right away to all of our viewers in the UK and around the world. I highlight the UK specifically just because I know we've gotten a recent sort of burst of interest there with some of the Shroud of Turin stuff that I've been producing from time to time, and there is more to come on that, but thank you for coming back wherever you're from. And if you have not yet already, please check out thegraciousguest.org, my website, where I've got blog posts, I've got the links to this channel, which, I mean, if you're on now, hopefully you've subscribed already, like this video, share this video as far and wide as you can, but also check out the website for all kinds of other goodies, some great content on there. For the podcast listeners to this who aren't watching, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel as well. That way you can kind of get a little bit more depth to some of the interviews and that kind of stuff as well, being able to see my guests, and it's free, so feel free to check that out. Today I want to take a look at this episode of the Twilight Zone, just very briefly, and this is a first, I think, on this program, although I've thought of doing this before, because I grew up in the latter part of the 1980s. Well, I mean, as far as what I remember, I was born in 1984. But, I grew up remembering pretty well the last couple years of the 1980s, and then the 90s, really, when I was in my formative years in school, grade school, and that kind of stuff. And we would catch reruns every now and then on TV of the Twilight Zone, which at that point was over 30 years old. Now we're hitting, it's 60 years old, basically, that program, that famous program that had so many incredible social commentaries throughout its run, especially those first few years. And there have been subsequent relaunches of the show under different folks' direction. I haven't personally, it's just my opinion, I haven't personally been that impressed with the more modern takes on it. I'm always a purist, so to speak, and a fan of the original Rod Serling years of the Twilight Zone. And you get so many incredible contributions at that time, from different writers, different up-and-coming writers. You get a lot of familiar faces showing up on a lot of old Twilight Zone episodes, people who were on their way to becoming kind of a known entity in that kind of era of film and TV. So just a lot of interesting things at a very important era in American history as well, and world history, with a lot of the issues going on. In this episode, The Shelter is no exception to that. This episode aired in September of 1961. September 29th, 1961. It was right in the wake of an increasingly concerning period of time, a lot of anxieties regarding potential nuclear war with the Soviet Union, a lot of the rhetoric of, at the time, Premier Nikita Khrushchev, the premier of the Soviet Union, a lot of President John F. Kennedy's response to that. And through that summer into the fall, there had been mounting concerns over potential nuclear war and a beginning of this sort of commercial surge of bomb shelter supplies and bomb shelter building and people considering that. If you've ever seen the movie Blast from the Past, which is a lot of fun, this kind of covers some of that at the beginning of that film. But this was a real concern for a lot of people. Fallout shelters, this horrific, this horrific possibility of this kind of nuclear inferno was on a lot of people's minds. And so, almost like throwing a match into a powder keg, Rod Serling comes out with this episode, which did upset a lot of people or concerned a lot of people. I heard a really interesting YouTube radio interview clip after I was doing some research for this, where Rod Serling was sharing with the host that they got over, I think he said 1,300 pieces of mail about this, like within the first few days or weeks after it was released. So this generated an awful lot of conversation and concern. And so what I want to do today is just give you a real quick overview of the plot. Recommend you go watch this episode. It's only about 25 minutes long, and it's very powerful in that short amount of time. And just offer you just something to think about, maybe. A little food for thought. Especially if you're thinking right now, well, nuclear war, that doesn't have anything to do with me, that's not really a big concern. Well, think bigger, because I encourage you to consider some connections maybe for us right now that we should probably be thinking about if we haven't already. And so in this episode, it basically kicks off with this birthday dinner for a doctor in the neighborhood named Bill Stockton. Bill's an older gentleman. He and his wife have a 12-year-old son. The son's off kind of watching TV, and basically you just kind of get welcomed into this very, 60s dinner party kind of vibe, and everyone's yucking it up around the table, and it's just friends from around the neighborhood. And they're all kind of roasting him a little bit, and he's just kind of going along with it. And his best friend gets up. His best friend Jerry gives this roast a little bit, and a roast and a toast. And you just get a little taste of where they're at, right? Suburban U.S., early 1960s, fairly successful folks. You're kind of upper middle class maybe, and kind of an idyllic, just right after those Eisenhower years. You kind of get a little bit of that vibe. And as they're finishing up dinner, the Stockton son Paul comes coming in the room. He says, I was watching TV and it kind of cut out. I don't know what's going on. And they go over and they tune in, and basically a civil defense patrol or civil defense announcement comes out saying that they have detected objects inbound towards the U.S. And it's this yellow alert, this warning. And everyone starts to get really nervous. Like, this is it. And everyone runs home. The Stocktons, they're trying to get ready for their shelter. They're very focused about it. They're Mrs. Stockton's is a little getting nervous and upset, and Dr. Stockton tries to talk to her about it. And so most of the episode, the first half is them really kind of getting ready to get down into their shelter. And sure enough, as soon as they get set in their shelter, the neighbors start coming over. They start coming back. They're increasingly panicked because they don't have shelters. And some of them don't have basements. The one of them says, we've all, new house, right? All the modern amenities you could possibly need, but we don't have what we need in a moment like this. Please let us in, please let us in. And this really just tense, it's hard to watch. You get kind of worked up of all these people coming and trying to get in the shelter. And Dr. Stockton, Bill's trying to tell them all, listen, I warned you all. I pray for you. God help you. I mean it with all my heart, but I can't let you in here. We only have enough air. We only have enough. They keep saying, like, well, we'll bring supplies. We'll bring our own stuff. He goes, you going to bring enough air? You going to bring your own air? He's like, we only have air for 2 weeks for 3 of us in there. And it's just the tension builds and builds and builds. And people just start losing it. And so you kind of start cutting back and forth between the Stocktons in the shelter and then everybody else showing up on the doorstep, getting in this frenzy, and they start fighting with each other, and one of them starts chewing out the other one in this really kind of racist way. He's like, oh, this is, all your, you foreigners, it's your fault, you bring all this with you, and basically everybody starts to just go loco and completely get unhinged at a moment's notice. And the episode, spoiler alert, basically culminates with a few of them running to another neighbor's house and getting some new pipe that he has downstairs for a project he's doing, this heavy pipe. They bring it over, and they're screaming and yelling like a mob, running down into the basement and just smashing. That's the picture I have on the cover image. At the end, they're crashing and crashing into that door like a battering ram, just completely busting it open and charging into the shelter. And the moment that the directing, everything about it's brilliant. The moment they start to get into the bomb shelter, the civil defense announcement comes on with an update. False alarm. They're just satellites. No missiles. Just satellites. And everybody's, they start to, kind of calm down, and some of them start to get, gradually excited. Some of them are upset and holding each other, just, calming down and breathing deeply. And then the one who had, in that very racist, nativist kind of way, criticized the other friend and even punched him at one point and knocked him down to the ground in anger. He's like, oh, hey, hey, Marty, I got unhinged. You won't hold it against me, will you? Surely you can let it go, Marty, right? And everyone's trying to awkwardly wade through the aftermath of all of this, and it's so tense. And the Stocktons start to come out of their shelter and work their way upstairs, and everyone's looking around and like, oh, Bill, we're so sorry. We kind of lost it. Like we can get a block party tomorrow, all right? And everything will be okay. And they're all trying to, get back to normal. And then I want to read this at length. This is Bill Stockton's quote at the end, the doctor, and he's taking an inventory, not just of what they've all just done, but himself too and his own family. He's really speaking for the whole situation, not so much accusing others, but or without accusing himself. It's this moral inventory of where they've just been and where they really are and what they've shown. Listen to this. He says, maybe we've found out what we're really like when we're normal. The kind of people we are just underneath the skin. I mean all of us. A lot of naked, wild animals who put such a price on staying alive that they'll claw their neighbors to death just for the privilege. We were spared a bomb tonight, but I wonder if we weren't destroyed tonight even without it. And then, they just sort of, there's no more dialogue from any of the characters. They just kind of slowly wander through the house looking at the wreckage of just the mob, the neighbors who were just at this party, so civilized. Like 45 minutes before this or an hour before this, and the destruction that they've carried out in that short amount of time when they thought their lives were in danger. And again, I'm summarizing the whole episode. You definitely have to check out the whole thing. But the episode ends with this. Rod Stewart, who always comes on at the end with that little closing thought, he says, at the very end, let me bring it up here. He says, no moral, no message, no prophetic tract, just a simple statement of fact. For civilization to survive, the human race has to remain civilized. Tonight's very small exercise in logic from the Twilight Zone, right? Listen to that again. For civilization to survive, the human race has to remain civilized. I want to be careful with this, but I just want to add this just as kind of a closing thought. In the last 18 months to 2 years, I've seen some seemingly very rational, well-rounded, good people do some shocking things, make some astonishing sacrifices, and I don't mean in a good way. I mean letting go of some very important principles for a quick fix, a desperate reach for some sort of safety, some sort of security, some sort of hope. We are no different. Absolutely no different than these folks 60 years ago. Just might have some different outside circumstances and context calling us to make the same journey, calling us to think about the same things. And so Twilight Zone does it again. Okay, it speaks beyond the grave, basically, offering us, I think, some really important, very timely considerations, some things we should really take seriously and then just think about, okay? How are we behaving? Who are we really deep down? And like I said at the outset, sometimes it's very often the difficult times, the struggles, the fearful moments where we really find that out, okay? So, just something to think about. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for stopping by today on the Gracious Guest Show, where we showcase wonder and awe, trying to live with wonder and awe, trying to see past those things which tempt us to think that there's nothing more to life than just our material, physical, day-to-day type, circumstances. Well, that's not true. There's a lot more. There's so much more beneath the surface, and that's what we're trying to do here. Explore that, unpack that, find that truth, find that beauty, find that goodness wherever it is, and share with each other. So thank you guys so much for stopping by today. My gracious gang out there, fans of the Gracious Guest Show. Spread this far and wide. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. And until next time, don't forget to wonder. Take care.